a matter of fact, they feel that it is a top national security threat for themselves. That is the US, and I think it will be the same for us also. This is going to be and should be treated as a dominant focus. We have in this connection eminent personalities, both in the government sector, academics, scientists, and private industry. And many of them, they are all going to whole of the day apply their mind. And I am sure this time, again by the evening, if something positive develops, we will definitely keep the concerned government department, Ministry of Home Affairs, everybody involved in our own suggestions and our own recommendations. The stakeholders, again, should be helped in providing these advanced and intelligent solutions for a synchronized security. I was talking to Mr. Anil Chowdhury, who has got the responsibility for the border security. Similarly, we have Mr. Kalsi over here, who is dealing with this, a very sensitive subject on this. Summing up, I mean, the importance, any government should see the importance of this issue, concentrate and ensure that all facilities are provided to these sections, beyond the usual normal bureaucratic wrangles, etc., etc. This is a subject which should get the topmost priority, and I am sure in this connection today all the eminent personalities are going to say what is needed, what should be done, etc. And our daily life, this economic vitality and national security depends on a stable, safe and resilient cyberspace. That's all. With this, I once again join my colleague earlier who extended a warm welcome. I join him and I join the organizers in extending a very, very warm welcome and looking forward to a very useful deliberation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. I would now request Shri Prakash Kumar, National Technology Officer, Microsoft India, to address the audience. So please.
The dignitaries on the dais, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank Alex and Ravi for giving us this opportunity. And what I'm going to share with you is a glimpse of kind of threat we have and how do we take care of this scenario. So who are the bad guys today? You must have read about this particular group, Anonymous, who singularly attacked large number of banks or even certain government organizations. Or are these people who are basically part of a country's forces? And this happened, here what we see here is South Korean, large number of establishments were under cyber attack, and the blame was on the North Korean army. The third one is organized gangs who have large number of people. In fact, they are organized like any other company, and the way they have their entire infrastructure worldwide. And this is from an article basically talking about the botnet and the extent of its operation worldwide. 15 million computers were affected by this particular botnet, and they were controlling and basically passing 40 billion spam emails every day. And it continued from 2006 to 2011 when this particular botnet was neutralized by Microsoft. Or we have some others who just for the fun of it try to get into your system or try to see how strong your and our defenses are. So we have different kinds of people who are attacking our systems, and this slide basically gives you the malware encountered by the region worldwide. Now what our country is in the middle somewhere. Thankfully we are not the red color, and the white here is not that they are not affected, there is not sufficient data to represent it on this particular diagram. So let me also share with you, we have a large organization which looks into this, and they publish these reports. And this is about the malware infection and encounters. The left one, what you see is computers cleaned per 1,000 scans. And the right one is basically the figures for reporting encounter rate. The blue one is for our country, and the gray one is for the world average. So we are way above, and what we see here, the trend, if you see, the first one is it's going up. I'll just contrast it with a country which has much better cyber infrastructure, Singapore. They are halfway the world average in both the accounts. Now let's see what kind of threat categories we are infested with, or our cyber infrastructure gets attacked with. And the maximum number is bombs or trojans. And if you see, the India figures are much, much higher than the world average. Let me show you again the Singapore. Here, if you see there, the rates are much lower than, of course it's a small country, but they have much better measures in place to ensure that their cyber infrastructure is not compromised. We have a large program, as I mentioned to you earlier, where we are continuously monitoring what's happening, helping large number of governments with providing solutions, also providing them information on botnets and things of that sort. And the figures indicate here basically the amount of effort which is going. Last week I was in US and I had opportunity to visit our digital crime center, which is one of its kind in the whole world. And from there they are basically providing information to large number of countries, and they do it through the CERTs. Country CERT is provided information, and there onwards it's their job to take care of or to neutralize that. And they work very closely with government deputed organizations, largely with American and European agencies, but also with other governments. In fact, I was surprised to see that the entry itself was almost like getting into our defense ministry here. In fact, it was more than that. And the glasses there were of bulletproof glasses all around and 3 layers of security. So when I asked why is it so, they said that we are under severe threat from the criminal gangs as well as many other such elements, and hence we have to take care of that. A large number of people who are involved in taking measures against this visit our digital crime center, and if anyone is interested, we can help you out in doing that. So taking this opportunity, I thought let me talk about something which may not sound very big, but is going to prove a big risk factor, and that's basically XP, which is 13-year-old operating system and still in use in many government organizations and also in private sector. On 8th April, that is less than a month from now, we are going to stop providing support on this, and that is going to create certain challenges. And let me just explain, because people say that my network is isolated and hence I don't have any challenge on that. It's almost like saying that I have a patient who is in a room which is completely hermetically sealed. However, the patient is visited by the doctors, by the nurses, by the relatives, and you cannot rule out the chances of infection being carried by some of them who come and visit the patient. So your network may be completely isolated, but someone from your who are using it may carry something, may use a system to send an email or receive an email, use a floppy drive, flash drive, or there are many other points of infection, and once a system is not supported, you may have large number of challenges. So 2001, I don't know how many of us had cell phones which we have today. We used to have these cell phones, the Nokia ones, with most of the people. There was no Facebook, there was no Twitter, there was no YouTube at that time. Cloud was largely something which was used by certain agencies, and the data, the big data concept was only that data has 3 dimensions, that is its velocity, its amount, and how it's being, and its variety. From there, we have come to a scenario today where, on an average, every individual sitting here in this room will be having 2 or 3 devices with him or with her. And those devices you carry to your office, you have your emails coming on that. So similarly, you have lots of your social identities, whether it's a Twitter or Facebook and things like that. And the distinction between what you own and what you are in your office and what you are otherwise outside your office, that is blurring. There is lots of things which are getting common. Similarly, more and more people are going to cloud, whether you are using your Hotmail account or your Gmail account or many other, Facebook, Twitter, all of them. And this has increased the threat of cybersecurity in a big, big way. And on top of it, if your system is not designed to take care of those threats, and the support is also taken off, we are going to land in a very difficult scenario. And what we see here on this slide is basically evolution of operating systems, what kind of threats were there and what features these operating systems had. Because lack of time, I won't get into that. But what you see here, the XP, which was designed in a scenario where we were largely sitting on our desktop using the computer. And using that OS and that infrastructure in today's system, which has changed completely after 13 years, will not be advisable. In fact, what we show here is how different elements of ecosystems like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, etc. have come into and this workhorse has continued from 2001 till today. In fact, most of us, we change our vehicles or cars in a shorter period than this OS, which has been continuously going on. And the time has come to put it to rest. So what impact it has? Suppose you continue to use that. What impact it has? It increases your security risk. There is no one to call. The downtime will increase, And there will be many software issues because your vendor who has developed application on that, many of them are not going to provide you support on discontinued environment. And hence, the guys or the agencies like Gartner, they are also advising that organizations which have used or which are using XP, now they need to call it an end and shift to other better, and that's either Windows 7 or Windows 8. This is the last slide, a little cluttered and complicated one, but this I thought I should share with the people here, that what are the measures we need to take to keep our systems safe and secure. So whether it's monitoring your system infrastructure, protecting the endpoints, or monitoring the network. So that's on the system side. Educating the users, and especially in the government sector, is very, very important. And that also is one of the important measures which we suggest. Strong authentication, hardening of web and server applications, and defending the web and protecting your email. So these are the 35 top measures which we suggest to our partners and users. And the top 4 being the application patching, OS patching, keeping administration under strict control, and whitelisting of all applications. So with this, I come to the end of the presentation, and I thought that this is the right forum, which is dealing with ICT infrastructure, should ponder and see wherever we have this old but very reliable workforce, he should be given rest, and we should go to the new generation workforces which are made available. Once again, thank you, Chair, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much, sir, for providing us the insights of alarming threats to security. Now I request Dr. Ashwini Kumar Sharma, Managing Director, NILET, to please address the audience.
Eminent personalities of the dais, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I must convey my sincere thanks to Mr. Narayanan and his team to give me this opportunity to be over here, because the topic which we are going to discuss in the sessions to come and in the present session also is the demand of time. The way Mr. Prakash said, that the way we have been penetrating into technology and the way technology is changing day by day, the way penetration of mobile is taking place, the way we are going for delivery of services to citizens door to door, the way government is planning for the e-governance applications, it has become very mandate for us to have a feel what are the cons and pros in case we are not able to basically go for the cyber crimes and control of the cyber security. Now basically we have been listening, understanding, going through the newspaper, but few of the things which I think are well known to all or may not be well known to all, I think need to be discussed. One is that cyber criminal activities are generally designed and they are basically to accomplish either or all the following activities. One of the activities basically is steal intellectual property. That's one of the target which basically we plan when we are going for a cyber crime. Second is to listen secretly to the other communication. This is one of the purpose, especially to the government communication. What is flowing between the defense to ministry, ministry to finance, like that. And third is basically to undermine the all security of national security related sites. Now what is happening is that the advanced persistent threats are mainly to the developed countries. If you have seen that graph or the picture which was shown by Mr. Prakash, I could feel that the mainly threats are which are basically advanced persistent threats. They are mainly applicable to advanced countries, which include the USA, Germany, South Korea, Switzerland, Canada, Taiwan. But slowly they are going to other countries also. So we have to be very careful, alert for this activity. Now there are major vertical segments which are basically targeted by the cyber crimes, which include mainly the government. This is the first target which the cyber crimes which are happening there. Then the education, then service and consultancy, aerospace, then government, financial securities, chemicals and telecommunication. As per the report which is there already available on the website, it is felt that China is one of the key drivers behind the cyber attacks, because they have been doing a lot of research, a lot of activities which basically make us more worried, especially in Indian context, to be more careful on this activity. Now question comes, what is a malware? Because we have been listening this word number of times, we listen all day. Basically it is nothing, it is just short form of malicious software which basically results into malfunctioning of the computer, which can be either contamination of the computer, which can be stealing of the information from the computer, or gaining access to the private computer system. You basically become unauthorized user of the computer which somebody else has got the right. Now this can be this can be in the form of a code or a script. Now it can be in the form of, as Mr. Prakash just have shown, it can be in the form of worm, which almost occupy around 10 to 12%. It can be in the form of Trojan horse, which is almost around 60%. It can be in the form of virus, which is around 17%. Like that backdoor, where you basically try to go for unassessed authorization, like this. Now, once we are talking about all type of malicious software or malicious activities, the question comes to us is virus and worms. These are the two terminology which is being used mainly in the society, especially in the IT professional society. Now, virus is basically an executable software which has to be multiplied by the user himself. Means we need a user intervention. Whereas in case of worm, there is no need of the user. It flows. It's a file which flows through the network and automatically it starts multiplying. So we have to be more worried on the worm, because the way we are growing, the way we are using for cloud computing, networking systems, we have to be more careful on that part. Now, in the present scene, there is an approach required to fight these cyber crimes. Now, what is happening is cyber criminals are using tricks and social energy engineering tactics to fool, employing for compromising machine and corporate accounts. That's the basic aim which they have been targeting. Now, common technology which are being used are phishing, which basically is nothing, is a send message to user to perform some action. It is also a spear phishing, where basically you send a personalized message and target the specific customers. And the third and the most important is the watering hole attacks, where basically you make a legitimate website and there is a group who is operating that, and basically they attract you to go to that website. One of the example is, in the recent past, we have a mobile application development site which was basically controlled by the remote access Trojan. That's the way things are changing. Now, we need to adopt the techniques to take care of these cyber crimes. One of the techniques which we generally follow as a thumb rule is do's and don'ts, where we try to convey to our staff, our faculty, our members, our users, stakeholders, that how to reduce the risk of phishing attacks, not to open untrusted and suspicious links. But this is not the solution now, because with the change in technology, things are changing. The second concept is basically eliminating the vulnerabilities. But again, packing and securing code. But that also does not basically provide the solution to us. In the recent attacks, word attack documents were attacked and were sent to victim in spear polishing emails. Microsoft provided a patch also in 2012. Now basically it is becoming very difficult to keep on uploading the patches. And even as you said that in XP, now we will not have a patch also. So we have to take care of that part basically. So you have to work out a system. Now that's the reason we have even come to a concept of going for a secure application by design. That's a new concept which is coming up. So you build the security parameter itself in the application which you are going to design. Similarly, we are planning to work out a mechanism where we go for a malware detection, where we are able to detect the malware operations or viruses or worms before they get generated or they start multiplying. Now, similarly, what is happening is, once we are going for a malware detection, there are again three approaches. One of the approach is signature-based detection. Second is heuristic-based detection. and that is behavioral based detection, where you match the signatures with the dictionary which you have got, and based on the background experience or past exposure, you compare and take a decision. Now, same thing, I mean, number of such crimes have been happening in a number of countries, number of states, number of cities. One of the, if you remember, the way Mr. Prakash just has shown, that there was an attack in New York, and it was shown that more than 2 lakhs new kind of viruses are being registered every day. That's the market survey, which says that maybe the virus quantum of impact can be low or small, major, minor, but on an average it is being understood that 2 lakh viruses are being generated every day, which we can understand what is the gravity, because those who are involved in this business, cybercrime business, they are more smarter, more intelligent than us, because that's their bread and butter. Now, with the change in concept and technology, now we have been talking about blacklisting concept. Now the concept has come of file whitelisting, where basically what is allowed, we retain that file and try to compare with that file and allow the software to take action accordingly. Rather than finding out the fault, we are saying we'll allow these activities or these files, this patches, this database, like that. So new technology has come in the market, but still this is not the only solution. So there is a challenge in maintenance and setting up of the whitelisting file. That's the one of the issue which we have to take care of part. Like for example, Casper's whitelisting solution uses a database that contains 70 crore unique files and updated by 300 software companies. Now it is not so an easy task, because every day we are finding a new worm, new virus, new Trojan, so we have to take care of that part. Now second option is, which has come in the market, is execute the task in a virtual environment. This is also coming up, because so that the virus or the worm or the malfunctioning remains limited to the particular environment only. But also this is again challenge, because challenges application are designed to become interoperable, because we have been talking about that software has to be interoperable. So if we are going for a virtual environment, then we land into other issue of interoperability. Example is cut and paste. You cut somewhere, you paste somewhere, it becomes a problem for us. So we need a solution which is not dependent on end user, which is not dependent on patch availability, which is not dependent on malware detection, easy to implement and maintain, accessible throughout the enterprise solution. I think this is what we have to discuss, this is what the solution we need to take care of these activities. And I am sure during the whole day workshop, we will discuss all these issues and try to come out with a solution which can further be suggested or can be communicated to the concerned department or the ministry for taking up an action. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for sharing Lilacs initiatives to curb cyber threats. I now request Dr. Shefali Das, Director General, National Informatics Center, NIC, to address the audience.
On the fact that cybersecurity is very important in today's life, because knowingly, unknowingly, all of us in all spheres of life use some form of the cyberspace or the information or the technology which is being brought in through this. And it is very important for us to protect ourselves from any kind of mishappening in the cyberspace. Now, as we are going up and up, in fact, the first slide shown by Mr. Prakash, where it started from window 95 and gone to Windows 8, you will see the number of threads or the type of threads in the first version of the Windows was only 1, whereas it keeps on increasing. See, when we are trying to improve our infrastructure, applications, even the operating system, in spite of all this, still we are getting more threats. Why? Because people have realized that attacking a country through armed forces or the defense is only one way of attacking a country. You can do it or create havoc in that country by going through cyber attacks. We have seen this in many times. In fact, even if I don't go to that, it is not only harming or conquering a country where cyber attacks are happening, it's also to defame a country. We know very small things. There is a website and somebody just goes and changes one letter there or changes the color just to show that I'm superior to you, I know I can hack your portal and I can do anything I want to do. Attacking for the bank, the credit card frauds are there. But those are more serious things. I'm not talking only about that. There are also small threats. We get a lot of email attachments and innocently or by mistake if you open them, anything can happen. Starting from just changing the page or color of my home page to going to disrupting my computer, cleaning up all the files in the system. It varies. So we should be careful, and this is not something we can ignore. At least today we are not in a position to ignore them. So volumes of these attacks are increasing. Also the sophistication, the level of sophistication which is used by the hackers or the attackers are also increasing. So it's not always possible for us to defend ourselves because the thief is always running faster than the police. The police can try to catch up, not necessarily all the time. So we have to, now that is why cybersecurity is now perceived as one of the most serious economic and national security challenges. And how we handle that, there has to be, like Mr. Nandan said, that we have to be working together. Not only, it is not the responsibility of the government only. The government, industry, even the private citizens who use those facilities have to also be trained and aware that this kind of threats can come from any side. That is how the ICT infrastructure and the society both have to be together to see that these threats can be prevented or mitigated. Now, what are the components for the security? There are critical IT infrastructure that we all know, but what we don't really know, the end user points, the individual desktops or electronic devices, the mobile phone. All these are carriers, like the doctor who goes to visit a patient in a hermetically sealed ICU. These are the devices through which any kind of security can come. We use a small pen through which you can get virus or worms or trojans without even knowing that we are passing it, it is passing on. Information, these are the infrastructure. But what about the information which is available in the industry? For example, the networks. Networks also can carry. The mobile networks, the telecom networks, they also can carry this kind of threats and bring it to the cyber infrastructure which is hosted in a very, very secure environment. So we have to plug all kind of loopholes, close the doors, but at the same time must allow access to the legitimate users. And it's quite difficult to do so. It has to be both the operators and the ICT vendors. The machine have to be secure, the communication channel has to be secure, and the way the data is passing through has to be secure. Then only we can talk about secure cyberspace. There has to be strong network management. Best practices and techniques should be used. In addition to all that, for example, we are now asked by Microsoft to upgrade or leave behind Windows XP. I can still use Windows XP if I don't want to change. But what will happen is, if I am not willing to cooperate in this, through me, the virus and patches can come. That's why we have to protect each and every instrument or endpoint instrument which is connected to a network so that the entire network is secure. By one mistake or by one, what should I say, negligence, one can cause havoc in the network or the entire infrastructure. So we have seen cases that electricity, the whole town gets shut down because there is a problem, there is an attack on the infrastructure which controls the electricity distribution point. That can happen, which we normally would not associate that why electricity has to depend on cyber attacks, but it does happen. Airports get shut down. We have seen these instances in the past. How to do that? We need to have professional manpower, and as I said, the thief is always smarter than the police. So we have to engage very smart young professionals who will be working. It is not necessary that only government should employ them. The industry also should support this cause, and it has to be a cooperation and collaboration between the two. And also the techniques which are being designed, developed and tried by the hackers are moving very fast. So we also, to protect ourselves, have to move faster than them to catch up. How do we do that? The government has to join hands with the private sector with the common objective of securing the common cyberspace. We have to do that. There is no way we can shirk away from that responsibility. And we have to engage professionals who are trained on detecting, mitigating and also preventing the cyberspace. We have to develop indigenous technology because we don't know how long can we depend on others. India is a super, or at least we claim to be superpowers in IT. We should be focusing our energy to developing secure the security applications, softwares which will mitigate our risks. We have to, that is one part, then we are securing. But what happens if you are affected by it? There must be sufficient legal framework where we can catch and then prosecute the cyber criminals. We are trying, there are a lot of people working on this, but still we have not reached the stage where we can claim that we are doing effectively. Because unless we punish and demonstrate that the country is in a position to punish the cyber criminals, we will not be able to give, we cannot protect ourselves. How we do that? To strengthen the broader cyber ecosystem, we have to provide rapid information sharing. That means if a virus is seen, detected, we must inform everybody quickly so that please do not get affected, and these are the ways to protect yourself. Enhance public-private partnership, which I am repeating again and again because that is very important. And also we have to have sufficient fund for taking these necessary steps. As you know, I come from NIC. NIC is one of the biggest government IT providers, and we have a large number of national data centers, four today, and going to add more to our kitty. Most of the government departments have their IT infrastructure housed in one of our data centers. So it is very important that NIC takes enough initiative to protect the cyberspace and protect the data information which is housed in our premises. So what we are doing? We have set up, not now, for last 10 or 15 years, we have a dedicated cybersecurity group with professionals who are continuously working on 24/7 basis to protect the network security, application security, and what they do is they detect and analyze the malwares which are affecting and try to come up with advisory. We have also deployed necessary security controls covering networks, applications, data centers and end users. And I'll tell you how we are doing it. There are network firewalls and UTMs which have been placed at the gateways so that the entire system behind and the data centers are protected. We have got intrusion prevention systems. Also, we have deployed antivirus solutions in all the bhavans and the state centers and state government departments where NIC is operating. The application firewalls protect the applications, security information event management systems are there in place. They collect, analyze and correlate security events so that take action for future things. There is a 24/7 security operations center operating in NIC which monitors it. Also, we have contributed to the preparation of the cybersecurity policy for Government of India. We have given, and it is evolving, and we are continually giving our inputs so that it is brought in and kept in place. Mr. Kalsi will definitely be talking about that, and we do provide support to them. Network security audit is carried out for cyber assets deployed in ministries and bhavans. Right now, as we speak today, the network security audit is going on for NKN, which is one of the biggest networks, National Knowledge Network. We also follow policies and guidelines which are being issued by CAPSEC, by MHA and other government agencies, NTRO and all this. We keep on doing it. So how we do? We continuously do technology upgradation. We conduct trainings and workshops for our users in different bhavans, ministries and states, and we tell them about what kind of viruses are there likely to come, how to protect them. Series of workshops we conduct. We try to retain the cybersecurity manpower, which is actually not as many as we like to have. Everybody tries to develop an application, but not many are trained in how to protect that, make sure that these are cybersecurity proof, so that no intrusions can happen. So here I can say, I'll just give one example. One of the simplest ways how the hackers work, just try to do a denial of services attack and the entire system is shut down. In the recent elections which happened January, the assembly elections, we had November, the results came in December. So during that period we got a lot of attacks, but somehow our people were so alert. Nobody had, you must have seen the election results coming out. There was no stoppage, but there were a lot of attacks from different countries as well as from India. So for denial of service attacks were there, and we tried to prevent it. It was not effective. So I can say, touch wood, of course, the next elections are coming. I don't want to tempt the providence, but we are trying to work behind so that we protect our system. So we are talking about having a trusted resilient digital infrastructure that can withstand attacks. That's what I'm trying to say, that we must have our team ready to detect and immediately take action so that the attackers cannot succeed. And due diligence has to be done to address safety in cyberspace, including both proactive as well as reactive measures. So that's all I have got to say today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for highlighting NIC's efforts to protect ICT infrastructure and networks. Now I request Shri Rajesh Agarwal, Principal Secretary IT, Government of Maharashtra, to address the audience.
Good morning. So cyber security in our country is quite a joke actually. Let me narrate to you a few cases. एक कहानी सबने सुनी होगी. पुराने ज़माने में एक राजा था, वेरी रिच लाइक गवर्नर. एक वेंडर उसको आके सूट बेच के चला गया. कहता जी बड़े ही लाइट वेट है, आपको फील नहीं होगा. वेरी सिक्योर है, गोली मारेगा लगेगी. और जो बेईमान है आपके राज्य में, तो ये उसको नहीं दिखेगा, बाकी सबको दिखेगा. आपने बहुत ही बढ़िया सूट पहना है. अल्टीमेटली क्या हुआ, एक बच्चे को बोलना पड़ा, अरे नंगा घूम रहे तो. अपने भी यहीं पे ऐसे ही हो रहा है. दैट इज हाउ द सिक्योरिटी वर्क्स. आई लाइक टू प्ले विद बिग डेटा. लास्ट वीक ऐसे मन में आया, मैंने कहा यार इतना बड़ा सिटीजन्स का डेटाबेस है, And I said to my team, I have a hunch. पुराने ज़माने में क्लाइमेट कंट्रोल नहीं था, शादियाँ एक पर्टिकुलर सीजन में होती थी, बर्थ कंट्रोल नहीं था, तो we'll see particular dates, particular months, 70-80 years old. उस टाइम बर्थ ज़्यादा होते होंगे. Now it will be more flatter curve. चलो let us see an analysis of month of birth, date of birth, year of birth. So a database of a program which has cost the nation 10,000 crores. So we just first command I said कि चलो year wise मुझे ग्राफ दिखाओ. मेरी टीम कहती है अरे बाप रे 1802 से 2100 तक year of birth. You are getting it? So a program, the year of birth is allowed as 1800 or 2100. What's the quality of that program? Can it ever be a secure program? That is how our code is. Our code in mission mode project after mission mode. It's absolutely third rate. Third rate. This is an example. And a country which glorifies jugaad. We have people who glorify jugaad. Can you ever produce quality? If you don't have quality, you can't think of security. You can't talk of security. Unless you glorify quality, you are committed to quality. So this nation is not committed to quality. Whether it is our tanks, whether it is our ships, whether it is our software. So let us be blunt about it. Because we can have thousands of seminars in the country. Nothing will change. 6 महीने पहले हमारे अखबारों में आया महाराष्ट्र में कि सीएम साहब के नाम से ऑटो घूम रहा है साधारण. एक ऑटो घूम रहा है, ऑटो परमिट पे लिखा है, ओनर कौन है? पृथ्वीराज चौहान, मुख्यमंत्री महाराष्ट्र. इट्स वेरी सैड. सो वी इंक्वायर्ड इनटू द थिंग. नेशनल मिशन मोड प्रोजेक्ट है ट्रांसपोर्ट का, वाहन. 13 लोगों के पास यूजर नेम पासवर्ड, 13 यूजर नेम पासवर्ड कैन एक्ट एज एडमिन इन दैट. और वो नंबर 3 व्हीलर का भी नहीं था, कार का नंबर है, ऑटो को दिया. The software which does not sense the series belongs to 4 wheelers should not be allotted to 3 wheelers. The national mission mode projects. E-tender, our national mission mode project. Who is choosing the digital signatures? Are the officers choosing the digital signatures? No, boss. Consultants and vendors are having access to those. Income tax, digitally signed statements. You go to any chartered accountant in the country, उसका ड्रॉर खोलो, 200 डोंगल मिलेंगे. सभी क्लाइंट्स ने अपना डिजिटल सिग्नेचर यूजर नेम पासवर्ड दे रखा. E-office project, national mission board project. Even in our Mantralaya, secretaries are handing over digital signatures to their PAs. In between, I had charge of finance department. So one of my deputy secretaries was very sincere. वो कहता सर आज मेरी PA मेरे से नाराज हो गई. वो कहती बाकी सबने तो इवन IAS ऑफिसर ने अपने PA को दे रखा है कि आप मुझे डिजिटल सिग्नेचर नहीं दे रहे हो. साहब तुम्ही माझ्यावर भरोसा ठेवत नाही. Sir, you don't trust me. She was very annoyed with the boss. When everybody else is handing over their digital signatures along with the username password. Even today, I ring up some my batchmates. बातचीत कब होती है, and then I say, what's your email? They have to call their PA कि अपना email बताना जरा. So we have to focus on quality. We have to focus on SOPs. We have to physically ensure a few certain things. That people are not listening and force biometric along with that in critical projects. In the same Vahan project, we found there were no SOPs anywhere. So in banking system, in our any other electronic system, e-governance system, even in many private systems, How are passwords being communicated? Have you ever thought of it? Are passwords being communicated in a very secure fashion? If you are very lax with the passwords, you can have no security. A few weeks ago, one very young guy, he told me कि Election Commission of India का server password 2 साल से change नहीं हुआ, and he started blurting out the password star. आप रुक जाए यार, मुझे नहीं सुनना. Our banks are all computerized. Who stores the passwords of those servers? Do you think bank manager is storing or vendors are storing it? पासवर्ड कौन याद रखता है? बैंक मैनेजर के पास है या वेंडर के पास है? वेंडर के पास. फिर हम सिक्योरिटी की बात करते हैं. So, very crisp message I wanted to give is, we must focus on quality, otherwise we should stop speaking about security and force quality everywhere. Good clean code. Have SOPs for passwords and force them very strictly. Very simple stuff. And finally, just to basically annoy Prakash, XP यूज करना चाहिए ना? करते रहेंगे तो ठीक है, तो मैं ओपन सोर्स में जाऊंगा. That's very simple. XP, so again now 70-80% of the banks are bank desktops, government desktops, even private sector. We still continue to use XP. So either we should move to Windows 7 or we should move to open source. He spoke of only one alternative, but it's time to move on, yes. I think I will stop here. Again, the message I wanted to give was very crisp. Focus on quality, quality, quality. Security will come later. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for very interestingly highlighting the realities.
And you made your point very clear.
From a Raja's digital suit to an officer's digital signature, the reality. Thank you for sharing this with us. Now, I request our dignitaries to inaugurate our new magazine, ICE Connect, Connecting Technologies, Trends and Businesses. I request the chief guest and all the guests to inaugurate it. After the successful launch of Asia's first of its kind magazines titled eGov, eHealth and Digital Learning, Illets Technomedia brings to you a specialized focus magazine on infrastructure and construction industry through ICE Connect, Infrastructure, Construction and Engineering, that offers new technology and industry trends to stay ahead of times. The monthly magazine will be a non-stop source of professionals, and it will be a one-stop source for professionals and governing authorities involved in the infrastructure, construction and engineering spectrum. The magazine will focus on new projects, policies and products updates with reports and insights from consultants and industry experts, which gives the publication a longer shelf life. Thank you very much to all the dignitaries. Now, it's time for me to request the chief guest of the day, Dr. Nirmaljeet Singh Kalsi, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Home Affairs, to please deliver the keynote address.
Dignitaries of the dais, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to talk about the national security perspective and would give you some of the components of the national information security policy for which MHA has been mandated. If we look at the national security perspective, that has many dimensions. Right from the physical security, which includes internal threats, unrest, external aggression, border security. We also have security of strategic assets. Could be defense, could be nuclear, could be atomic, could be space. Another important area is critical infrastructure, and especially the critical information infrastructure. Economic security, energy security, and most importantly, the space which is connecting them all, cyberspace, so cyber security. And within cyber security, information security is the most important aspect of national security. Now, if I look at the policy environment for national security, it's a very, very complex environment. There are a number of ministries, number of departments, number of agencies, number of bodies which are involved with the work of national security. It's a very complex maze, so it is very important to define the role and responsibility of every individual organization with respect to every component of security I just explained. Now, if we look at the global concerns, we are aware of the alarming instances of cyber espionage, sensitive information. We are aware of what the project PRISM is doing. Each mail which you are writing, copy of that mail first goes to the US government. It is indexed, it is stored very properly, and only thereafter the recipient is getting it. Same thing is true for your Skype conversation, your text, your messages, everything. And if you look at the cyber espionage which has happened, this has happened either across the strategic sector, or the energy security sector, or the economic security sector. And the total loss, which was calculated about 6 months back, 6.9 trillion US dollars. And this has already crossed about $8 trillion by now. Now, let's look at the issues in India. Now, obviously, securing sensitive information is a strategic challenge for the country. As Rajesh just explained, we don't have security culture. We have a very open society. Secondly, the economic stability is very, very important for defining national security. And all attacks have been on economic targets. Thirdly, intellectual property is a very, very important aspect which contributes in the development of both the public and the private sector. And they act with a knowledge-based economy like India. And rise in cyber espionage, targeted attacks, critical information infrastructure. Private sector, though they have started investing of late in information security, but they are not alive to the concerns of the national security. They do it where the protection of their own IPR, protection of their company, but they are not really sensitized to the national security concerns. So though public sectors are increasingly using IT, government agencies are using IT, but they are not really awakened to the challenges of national security, though they would like to do it. So therefore, protecting information is the key enabler right now, is the key challenge for national security. So why this has happened? What is the relevance in today's context? Firstly, most paper-based information is going digital. Whether you talk of Aadhaar, you talk of cash benefit transfer, you talk of passport database, everything is going digital. And technology, whereas it is becoming enabler, it is also becoming a potential threat. You just imagine WikiLeaks. Just a small pen drive and 2.5 lakh emails the guy could just fish out, could take away. That is not a security breach, that is a personal security breach. A person ditched them. Then rapid technology advancement, it is making the information boundaryless, becoming a bigger challenge to secure this information. The need for monitoring, enforcement and regular updates. Security of strategic information becoming more and more important and urgent, but it's becoming difficult. Just imagine if you have a strategic asset, you have a nuke installed in Pakistan, and somebody gets into that program. They can fire it. They can fire it on India, they can fire it on US, they can do anything. And the kind of havoc it is going to play. Same thing is true for India. Then services, most of the government services, most of the government database, they are going online. And therefore, we need a robust and comprehensive information security policies, which are aligned to the current threats. Now, just one slide I would like to explain to you. What is the security ecosystem? You have national security, you have cyber security, you have information security, which is part of an organizational security. So most sensitive component is the pink one. That is sensitive and critical information of an organization in cyberspace, having bearing on the national security. For example, the unauthorized access to sensitive information residing in computer systems. Secondly, the cyber security element, which has bearing on information security of an organization. For example, the attack on the applications, the network, the database, though it has no national security implications, but it definitely has implications for the organization as such. Third is access to sensitive critical information of an organization, having national relevance. For example, the unauthorized access to strategic document. It may not be cyber in nature. It may be physical in nature. For example, if somebody takes away the top secret file, physical files, then cyber security elements confined to organization, which has no national security implication. For example, disrupting the function of infrastructure application like denial of service attack. Then disrupting organization services having bearing on national security. For example, distribution of transportation and utility services. Stuxnet, that was part of this kind of a cyber attack. Then disruption of physical infrastructure having bearing on national security, that is bomb, earthquake, fire, etc. And finally, the cyber security component of national security of a nation, which is not confined to a particular organization. For example, undersea cable cutting, that also affects the national security and the cyber security. Now, the entire cyberspace has been divided into different areas, and responsibility has been given to different organizations, different ministries. For example, MHA and IB, they handle information security, both classification and codification. The IT and NIC, they handle government IT infrastructure security. They also handle organization called CERTIN. So they handle general monitoring and supervision of cyberspace. NCIIPC handles critical information infrastructure. DOT is handling the security of communication infrastructure. And crisis management plans are then being framed by every ministry, which have a common component, which have a sector-specific component, and they are being implemented. So, Ministry of IT has a very important role. MHA has a very important role, and these roles are overlapping to some extent. Number of organizations are working with MCIT. Similarly, MHA is working on the information security, which has implications on most of the other aspects. So MHA is primarily handling the national common information security policies and guidelines and cybercrime. So these two areas MHA is handling, whereas other ministries are handling other areas. Now MHA took a very fundamental study of the systems on as-on basis, and what are the standards being followed in telecom sector, BSFI, under the IT Act, and under the various government guidelines issued by DITI or DOT or NIC. We looked at every guideline. We looked at whatever has been issued till date, to go in for a comprehensive way of defining information security. So what we did, we divided this information into a number of areas. A commercial information, personal information, financial information, then government information, which also contains the social security, citizen data, public IPR, geological data, economic data, transaction data, and then critical infrastructure. On top of that, we have internal security and external affairs. Both are extremely important. And then the strategic layer. And different layer, the different component of the layer will have to be given different treatments. And then we found out as to what all is relevant for these layers. We also studied the security standard being followed by different layers, by players in different layers. So we looked at ISO standards, both 2005 and 2013, PCI standards, HIPAA, DSS, that is the standard being followed by Data Security Council of India, SAN standard, RBI standard, SEBI standard. All standards were studied for different layers. And thereafter, we also studied all the reference standards, like FISMA, like NIST. All these standards were studied. And ultimately, we came up with this National Security Information Security Policy, which is primarily for strategic information security capability, developing this capability in the country. Economic security through reliable security practices, assurance by building trustworthiness, assurance on protection of intellectual property rights, and resilient and reliable infrastructure against all kinds of threats. So we developed this policy. So I'm going to give you some details of the policy. No, not all the details I'll be able to give you. This policy has primarily 8 core areas, 8 core domains which it touches. Data security, application security, identity and access management, network and infrastructure management, physical security, security monitoring and incident management, threat and vulnerability management, and personal security. And then you have business continuity and disaster recovery planning, and security audit and testing which goes across all the domains. It involves guidelines, and these guidelines evolved with reference to specific approaches and standards and practices. And similarly, it also looked at various approaches like security organization, the application security function, the threat intelligence, content classification. Different content classification has different kind of security requirements. So that standard 5 classification category, 5 categories of information classification has been adopted in this. Then treatment at strategic and tactical operational level. Then knowledge and skills required to implement these. And characterized with specific technologies and services. So number of technology and services we have looked at. And ultimately we have come up with the comprehensive policy. So that's the policy document, which has been circulated for final comment by all the stakeholders. And I intend to issue this final draft by the end of the month. Once we issue this draft, this policy contains 8 core domains, 62 guidelines, and 132 controls. And we have mapped these 132 controls against the controls provided in the other standards, including whatever has been provided by NIC till date. And all this has been done with specific reference to information security, because we are not claiming that we will give you the foolproof method of, say, securing IT assets. No, that is the responsibility of the NIC. So NIC guidelines are there, NIC guidelines would apply, but information security guidelines would apply over and above that. So we have mapped these 132 controls against the guidelines issued by NIC, against the NCI PC controls. There are 40 controls which have been defined. Similarly, ISO 27001, both 2005 and 2013, then FISMA and NIST, then SANS 20. So all these have been very properly mapped in the policy. And then for each guideline, each of the 62 guidelines and 132 controls, what are the action points which are emerging? What are the policy points which are emerging? Those have been given. And their specific relevance to information security has been given. So I think this policy is going to be finalized by March end, and thereafter we are going to place this policy in the public domain. Now this policy is mandatory for all the government ministries, government departments, PSUs, banks, everybody. This policy is mandatory. But this policy is not mandatory for private sector. For them it is just a recommendation. It is for them to look at the policy and to follow it if they feel so. But obviously if they are working with the government on some project, so with respect to that project, they'll have to follow this policy. They have to comply with the security standards prescribed by the government. So that is all I wanted to share with you. I am thankful to the organizers for giving us the opportunity to share our views. And I would welcome any comments, any suggestions, any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's time for our last speaker. I invite Shri Arun Chaudhary, Director General, Sashastra Seema Bal, for his special address for the day.
The previous speakers have said whatever has to be said about IT security and citizen security. As far as my comments on what has been said earlier, especially by the representative from the NHA, who is basically
in charge of the policy making as far as security or securing the IT systems, applications, and whatever we have in the government domain is with him. As far as a border guarding force, I must in a few words tell you that I head a border guarding force which is looking after the security and border guarding duties on the Indo-Nepal and Indo-Bhutan borders. Apart from that, from time to time, the Ministry of Home Affairs does assign us places of our deputation, deployment, when there is internal security duties to be done. In a very small way, as a matter of fact, as Mr. Kalsi has already told you, in a very small way, all the Central Armed Police Forces are having IT applications and software within their organization, basically to make easy their core functioning in the area of their work. For the Sashastra Seema Bal, it is the border guarding. And in a very small way, we have tried to familiarize our constables, sub-inspectors, our assistant commandants who are in these border OPs to be using the security applications based on IT which we have given to them. And along with it, we tell them that accessibility to the software and hardware which I have given to you should be very limited. As Sanjay Agarwal has said, that basically we should be looking for quality rather than security. But I must compliment ELETS and its organizers for pursuing this security IT to make us conscious of the type of dangers and threats we have as far as usage of this cyberspace is concerned. Educating our constables and sub-inspectors as far as the security aspect of the IT applications and software which we use is basically through our training, basically calling some private sectors who supply us with these softwares to train us as far as the security is concerned. And I must tell you and confess that apart from this training which we have done, basically the data which we have with us may not be very much relevant for the time being, because the data collection is being done at a very, very low speed at the present juncture. But we need to increase it as far as our core areas of functioning is concerned. That means that we have our surveillance cameras on the borders which are linked to our controls. There are databases prepared for human traffickers, smugglers, people who cross the borders on a regular basis, indulge in crime, and whenever they try to cross the borders, we are trying in a very, very small way in certain areas of this border, because the border is very big. We have 1751 kilometers of the Indo-Nepal and around 690 kilometers of the Indo-Bhutan border. So the area is very big, but there are areas where there is a lot of crossing over from one side to another, and we have to keep those people under check who do these regular crossings and indulge in anti-national and anti-criminal activities. But still, we have a very, very long way to go. As the representative from the MHA has already told you, and the governor the government's directions which come to all the organizations, especially to the border guarding forces also, is from the MHA and from NIC. We try to familiarize our people to know what exactly are the vulnerabilities of the software and applications which we are using today. I am sure that more and more will be done to secure our IT systems and applications in the near future, and we'll be able to use more and more applications and software for our core areas of functioning in the field of border guarding. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Now I request Dr. Ravi Gupta, CEO, Deluxe Technomedia Private Limited, to present the vote of thanks for the inaugural session. So please join us.
I would like to first of all acknowledge the presence of the dignitaries on the dais who have taken out time from their very busy schedules to be here, and our attendees who are attending this important event, which is about security. Organizing a event on like security, almost like a workshop, and it's a very difficult because it's a highly specialized area, and many things are still not being discussed openly because of the various security concerns itself. So it's a more of a like instead of a conference, I think it's a more of a workshop about like learning about new things, and I think in inaugural itself we had the lot of new ideas coming up, I think, like which were hardly known to people outside the system. So with this, I would also like to acknowledge our sponsors, platinum sponsor of the event, Microsoft, and other sponsors, CA, Juniper, Trend Micro, and SafeNet, who have all supported this, and especially thanks to our government partners who are NIC, NILET, NIXI, and the Telecom Sector Council of India, and various other departments from a host of other agencies like who see in this whole day agenda. So I am thankful for all of them for having to be part of this event, and I would now like to invite you all for a small break at outside the hall, and we will assemble in say 15 minutes from now. Thank you so much.